to this Precious Metals Weekly Review with Andy SCHECTMAN. You can find his work at milesfranklin.com. Let's give him a big warm welcome. Andy, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, JC. Good to see you again.
Excited to have you. And you and I were just talking here before the show that you've since heard some rumors or some more information as to what may have occurred last week with the price smash. Let's start there, because I'm sure a lot of people will find that absolutely fascinating.
Right. So one of the things we talked about last week was technical analysis. Let's start there. When we have a 200-day moving average or a violation of the 200-day moving average, either above or below, with momentum, it is very frequently the delineation between a bull market and a bear market, or a bull pattern and a bear pattern. And in terms of technical analysis, it's very often the determining factor as to the direction of the investment. And in this case, we look at a price of gold that was sitting right at the 200-day moving average last week before the attack. And what had happened was an entity, who knows who that entity was? We assume it were the commercial banks from the information I'm going to share with you. One of the commercial banks, or a group of them, someone sells a whole bunch of gold, $4 billion worth, 2.4 million ounces were sold in the most inopportune time, as we discussed.
Right.
After London had closed, before New York had opened, and you had the two of the biggest Asian hubs on holiday in Singapore and Japan. I mean, you're talking the dead of the dead in terms of the zone where you're going to sell something. The worst possible time to do it, especially $4 billion worth, you're guaranteed to smash the price down. And what it did was it pushed the price over the 200-day moving average. There's the delineation with all of this momentum. The hedge funds are all controlled. The big funds on Wall Street, most all of them are controlled by algorithms that take all the emotion out of decision making. And so by the time the traders would have gotten into their office in New York at 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning, those algorithms would have long since traded them out of their positions, and the ball gets rolling. So they push it over 200 with momentum. It triggers all of the algorithmic sell orders, and gold falls down $100. Silver falls down to 22. Now, first of all, we understand that no one in their right mind would ever sell in this manner. I mean, like I said on your show last week, the trader would be fired and then shot, and probably not in that order, because it would have been the worst possible execution. You would do it over a series of hours when the markets open in London or New York, not when both markets are closed all at once. It was done as a drive-by shooting to push it over the 200 and get the ball rolling. So what, right? Well, here's where it gets interesting. The Commitment of Traders report came out Friday and showed a couple of very interesting things. In silver, the commercial banks, their net short position fell by 12,321 COMEX contracts at 61.6 million ounces. So we'll talk about gold in a second. So the price of silver gets clubbed, and as it hits New York, it pops right back up. I don't know if you saw that. It shot right back up, but only by about 40 cents, 50 cents. But what that was the beginning of wicked short covering. So the commercial banks who are trapped in a very large short position right now, and we can talk about why they're trapped, but they are trapped. And they're trapped to the point where I believe the technical funds realize they're trapped, and they're not going real short to aid the commercial bank's ability to get out of these positions. Well, that's a little bit deeper, but the bottom line is they push it down, the algos trigger more sell orders, and they come in and cover 61.5 million ounces of silver covered, because they do not want to be short in this environment, right? In gold, 35,643 COMEX contracts, or 3.56 million ounces, were covered. So they drive the price down by $100, bang, shoot it straight back up by short covering. This is about as illegal as it gets and manipulative as it gets, where you are specifically controlling the direction of the market in order to aid your position. That's just not cool. And it's very obvious to see what they are doing. And not only did they cover 32,272 short contracts, they went long by 3,371, which gave a net total of 35,643 contracts that were either covered or went long. This is massive, massive.
Right.
And one other point I'd like to talk about. You know, we talk about, you always hear this time it's different, right?
Yeah.
And remember, JC, how I've been talking about the others for the last several months, this third group on the COMEX, others that are considered to be sovereign wealth funds that keep draining the COMEX site. My claim is that they're draining the COMEX, right? Well, it just so happens that last week, those others, as these banks manipulatively pushed the price down, what did the others do? They went long by 26,541 gold contracts, 2.65 million ounces of gold. And they said, thank you for knocking it down, stupid banks. We appreciate that. And they're going to stand for delivery on that, or a large portion of it. So what I'm getting at is this time it's different because there is someone there standing for delivery. Thank you. I'll take it. Go ahead, knock it down some more. We'll buy some more. It's never happened that way before. It's always been the specs versus the commercials. Now, as far as the specs, I think that they're getting wise to what's happening. And I've always wondered, why the heck did they allow this to happen over and over and over and over again, where they suck in the speculators, drive the price up, and then smash it down? They're not going wickedly short anymore. The commercial or the hedge funds are not going wickedly short. In other words, if you look at the positioning of the ETFs, of the big funds, of the COMEX warehouse receipts, no one is selling. No one is the smash downs aren't working anymore. If you look at all of the metal into the ETF over the last 2 months as the price is getting slammed, they're going up. So the money realizes that something's going on. They realize that there's trouble and we're hanging on to our gold. Doesn't matter what the price is. We can see that it's crap. And so now the funds are really trapped the commercials are really trapped because their efforts to shake everyone from the tree by driving the price down in such a vicious manner, not only is it not working, it's having the opposite effect when groups like the others stand for delivery on 2.65 million ounces of gold. That's never happened before. So the price is having the unintended consequences, the smash down in price. Is having unintended consequences of the rest of the world saying, I call. It's akin to poker. I'm all in. I call. I'll call your bet. I think you're full of crap. And that is what the funds are doing. That's what the others are doing. And that's what everyone in this community is doing. Not one person sold an ounce over the last week as the price was hammered, right? Right. And I just simply believe this is one of these deals where the commercial banks have pushed the envelope too long and too far. And they're really, I think, running scared. And you can see by these overt in broad daylight manipulations where no one in their right mind would do what they did. And then once they did it, you can see that they're covering millions and millions and millions and millions of ounces the minute it hits New York. And, you know, they know exactly where all the funds are positioned because the commercial banks largely are the ones selling all the options. So they know just how far they have to push it down the hill before they get everyone else to cover for them, which drives the price down further, which allows them to cover those old positions. So I would submit one of two things. One of these days when the rally comes, the banks are just going to give up and they're going to stop shorting it. And they're going to make as much money on the upside as they did on the down. And I would also like to see.
I think you're frozen there, Andy.
That I think they're wising up to it. And I just think they're not selling like the commercial banks want them to, which will enable the commercial banks then, as the price drives down, to cover those old positions. Now, in order to do it, the commercial banks would have to really do some stupid things, and it would be very obvious what was happening. They're in a very bad position, JC, and this is just, to me, proof positive of it.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, I wrote down 3 questions for you. Before I get to them, I just want to address the comment on the screen by Carly. I believe Carly was one of the viewers last week, or maybe from the show before, who had submitted a form and not had heard back. So I think finally now that has been resolved. So thank you, Carly, for that. I think it might have gone to somebody's spam folder there as we were switching over from the old platform to the new platform. So I'm happy that worked out. So thank you, Carly, for that update. Okay, when you said not only are these big banks manipulating the price down to basically benefit them so that they can get out of these short positions that they're trapped in, I understand that that is also, while they're doing that, it's also at the detriment of a lot of their clients and the books that they hold for their clients. Let's talk about that. Where are the regulators in all of this? And who are those clients who are still in that game, seeing that happen time and time after, months and months and months after months, getting raped like this? Why are there still clients there on their books? What's happening with that?
JC, look at all of the fines that the commercial banks have paid over the last decade. I mean, in everything. From creating, like Wells Fargo, creating fictitious accounts, all the banks manipulating LIBOR, manipulating the Forex. I mean, they get slapped on the wrist. JP Morgan was convicted. Well, I guess convicted is the wrong word. Indicted and admitted guilt and paid, I guess it is convicted. They paid a fine of $920 million for manipulating the precious metals market, and yet they're still allowed to be the administrator of the largest silver trust in the world, SLV. And that year, last year, when they paid that fine for $920 million for their metals desk manipulating the market, their desk made $1 billion. They walked away up $80 million. I mean, who cares? This is a company that makes $1 billion a month profit. So the commercial banks have been allowed to run roughshod over everybody. And it's one of these deals where this is a big part of the problem in our financial markets. The commercial banks, which have allowed, with the repeal of Glass-Steagall, able to be investment banks, not just savings and loans. It's a big problem. They've created distortions and misallocations up the yin yang, and they for whatever reason have enough political clout whereby they're able to do these things, get slapped on the wrist, and continue to play the game and get bailed out along the way. So why are they able to do it? Why aren't more people up in arms? That's a good question. I think we're the silent minority, the ones that are, and we're all hopeful that they get taken out to the woodshed. Who knows if and when that happens? But it's a good question, and I always wondered, why do these funds continue to keep doing this? Why do the funds continue to keep getting hoodwinked by the commercial banks? And I hope one of these days...
Are they getting paid a premium to look the other way? Because I wanted to ask you this about the other category. So first, part of the answer here may be that there is an awakening happening, and we're seeing it with the other category, and we're seeing it with the people online now getting at a faster clip. But who are these others, one? And two, what's changed recently? Because I was under the impression that as these banks were playing these games, when people were standing for delivery at the end of the month, the COMEX will always buy them out in cash and say, oh, we'll give you a premium and just take cash instead. So is it possible that the COMEX, or is there any legislation change that is now preventing them from trying to cash out people out of their positions, and now they have to deliver? What happened this year? Why are these other categories able to actually stand for delivery and not have anybody come at their door with a gun to say, no, you should take cash and not the silver? What's going on there this last year?
Well, there are a lot of traders that do get those premiums to not sell, where, I don't know what the premium is, but whatever it is, it's significant enough to make them decide to take a cash settlement instead of a delivery receipt. When you have a market that allows for delivery, if they stop allowing delivery in this market, it's the same thing as default. And I think it becomes a real big problem immediately for the COMEX. The others are sovereign wealth funds and family offices, largely. The most influential, well-informed, well-heeled private money in the world. Maybe they know the central bankers. Maybe they are the central bankers wearing their Sunday jogger suit instead of their three-piece suit. The point of it is that these are very influential private people who are very loaded, who for the first time are challenging the commercial banks. What's really different, JC, is that in all the years I've done this, no one ever stood for delivery. I mean, you're talking less than 1% of all the contracts issued ever stood for delivery. In silver last year, with 300 million ounces delivered to the others, that's 10 years worth of deliveries in any year previous, just about. And we're already ahead of that this year. With gold, last year, the others took more gold off the COMEX in terms of deliveries than we saw the Bank of Japan has for their official holdings. So this is no small amount of gold and silver that these players, these big family offices and sovereign wealth funds are taking possession of. You're seeing big money use these manipulatively low prices to accumulate massive quantities. And it's now, you know, it was just the commercial and central banks, and now we're seeing it move into the family offices, the sovereign wealth funds, and other corporations around the globe are using this excess cash to, like Palantir there, 50 million in gold bars. You know,
Right.
people are waking up to the fact that it's not always about return on your money. It's about return of your money.
Mhm.
And I think people need to understand that there is an importance to understanding that very trite statement. You know, everyone wants to make a return on their money, but in an environment where everything has lost its sensibility, where price discovery is next to impossible, where everything has been jacked up to all-time highs and arguably unjustified, largely.
Yeah.
Taking some of that profit off the table, profit's not a four-letter word, and reallocating profit, whether it be in equities or cryptocurrencies or excess cash, as Palantir does here, and putting it into wealth that's been wealth for, you know, millennia, for 6,000 years. This is what the biggest money in the world is doing, and they are showing you that, yeah, it's been a nice run. We've made some profit in markets that have been goosed higher, but hey, you better button things up a little bit. I always make the example of a guy that I would often go on vacations with, and we would play poker or blackjack together. And at the end of the night, he'd always have chips, always. And I never saw how he did it. And, you know, he would cash out for lots of money. I thought, how the hell did you do that? I've been sitting with you all night. And he would always tell me he put a green chip in his pocket every single time he won a hand. You're guaranteed to walk away with some profit if you do that. You can leave the casino, which all these markets are akin to a casino these days.
Yeah.
You can leave with some chips in your pocket if you pull it off and put it in gold and silver. And that's what the biggest money is doing. And they're doing it using these paper price smash downs, not only as a subsidy, but also as cover for what they're doing. It would create far more attention if a company like Palantir bought the gold and it shot straight up. It would be a whole lot better if, I think, for all of the commercial banks and the people that are trying to accumulate it, to manage those types of price increases. So the price smashes, to me, are not only being used by the biggest money in the world as a subsidy, but it's also just showing to what length that these institutions are going to keep the game going. And I think they're afraid because they are trapped in a massively large short position, JC. Really a very, very big one that, look, that type of short position put Bear Stearns out of business. And that's when JP Morgan inherited their silver position. When silver went to $21, that largely put them out of business. This is no small joke. They're, in particular, Bank of America and Citibank and HSBC have massive short positions that can quickly put them out of business, while JP Morgan did the double cross and have gone net long. And they'll make more money on the upside as they ever did on the down. So just more positioning, more jawboning, more manipulation. But you can see the big money is using that manipulation to their advantage. And that's what the people need to do as well.
You talked about subsidizing the market here, and that's kind of what Cliff High was saying in the last interview. He says they're paying you right now to get silver. Like, that's how cheap it is compared to where it's going. So that's an important point. But I wanted to go back to this article here about Palantir. So basically, it's positioned here that they're hedging against this potential black swan event. And I wanted to ask you, talking about black swan event, what's happening in Afghanistan? We're seeing now rumblings with their central bank. Their central bank chief just disappeared and said, "No, there's no more money, folks. Go away." And we've also seen the Federal Reserve potentially here having confiscated $1.3 billion of gold here from the Afghan gold reserve. So is this a precursor to a black swan in your view? As we know, all of these central banks are connected. They're all connected through these credit default swaps. What's really happening here, and how does that tie in your view?
Well, first of all, if you look at the amount of money that was spent in Afghanistan, you know, 1.3 billion in gold is a couple of days worth of their spending over the last 20 years. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it amounts to next to nothing. I don't know that the Bank of Afghanistan is tied closely enough into the system. I don't know what their reserves look like, where it could actually destabilize. But I guess what I would say is that it's just more of the same fracturing of the fabric of this country. of the United States, and you see everywhere you see there are things breaking. I find what's happening in Afghanistan horrific on many, many levels. I feel so bad for so many of those people that are trapped, that have been left behind. We see a president who, I mean, I don't even know what to say about the way he communicates, the way he passes the buck. He just seems senile and inept, and I think it's an embarrassment what's happening to this country. I don't care what your political affiliation is. This man is not fit to make decisions or run the country. Makes me believe he isn't doing either. He is a puppet. And I find it to be as embarrassing as anything I've ever seen as a patriot in my entire life. And I am very proud to be American. I'm very proud to be from here. Largely, the people in the United States are wonderful. Our politicians have gone astray and led us astray. And this is just, I think we are laughing stocks in the world. You talk black swan. What do you think China thinks right now about going after Taiwan? And
right.
What do you think Russia thinks about what's it called? Their neighbors right next door that we've been defending.
Ukraine.
Yeah. So, I mean, they know that I think that there's nothing that we can do. And the message that we have said left to the world is that, sorry.
We're weak.
We're not going to keep our word. We're not going to protect you.
Right.
And I don't know. I think if you look around everywhere, whether it be the evisceration of the small business and the middle class, the destruction of the currency, the move towards socialistic type of programs, the massive government spending, manipulation of interest rates to their lowest level, and this kind of political chaos, not to mention questions about the validity and the veracity of last year's election. All of these things, they just keep happening. We're bombarded with them. And I don't know. It just seems to me that something's got to break at some point.
Yeah, what point does the dam break? Exactly.
Well, that's just it. And that's why when I look back at all of the things that have happened over the years and things that we have talked about that we suspected would happen, they often did happen, but never the way in which we thought they would, or how, or when.
Right.
And this just goes to show there are so many things happening so fast that, something's going to break. And I think this is why you own precious metals. This is the time to rein in and to not speculate as much, to be more conservative, to receive a return of your money, less than a return on it. And it's been a good run. People have made a lot of money in equities and in bonds and in cryptocurrencies. And it's time to take some profit in chips and put them in your pocket so that you can go to the cage at the end of the night and cash out. Because when something breaks, it'll happen on a Monday night morning. You'll wake up after a Sunday night, just like the market getting crushed did last week, to a new reality. And that's why proactivity is the most important thing that you can do. And however you're going to prepare, just look at this craziness and wake up and say, there are too many things happening at too fast of a speed, and it's time to protect a little bit. Profit's great, but losing everything sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Okay, so Emily says, I just got off the phone with David, and I feel great about doing business with the team at Miles Franklin. So thank you so much.
David is one of my two oldest friends, JC. I go back to literally to sixth grade with David, and
that's
he's
awesome.
Very much like a brother. And you know what? All of the brokers that your people talk to, all of them are friends of mine from anywhere between elementary school and high school, every single one of them. And they're all in their 50s. We go way back. We're family. We do things that manner. They all care about the integrity of what they're doing and who they're representing. And so thank you, Emily, and I do appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you, Andy. And that's why I'm part of your family as well. I see that and the way you do business and the way you comport yourself. And we keep getting the same messages every time we do a show. We love Andy's integrity. So I do appreciate that as well, Andy, from you. And Jim Montgomery says, yes, great message, Andy. Let's go back to Mr. B here for a moment. I brought that up for a reason, because in that previous article about Palantir saying they were hedging against a black swan. Okay, so let's say Afghanistan, their central banks are not connected in the way maybe they are. We're just saying right now it's hard to decipher if they're connected to our central banks and if they would create that type of maybe credit default swap, a domino effect. But let's look at this one here. Change angles for a little bit. we're seeing now that the mainstream media even is having a field day, I guess, with Mr. B's ineptitude. So just call it that. And so I'm trying to figure out here if there's been an order given in the last couple of days or week where they're trying to set up Mr. B here
25th Amendment. It's
for the
coming.
25th, and maybe getting either Kamala or somebody else, because some of the psychics are saying it's not going to be Kamala. So that's interesting. So what are your thoughts on that in terms of a black swan event that could potentially shake the markets immeasurably so if for some reason this president is removed for his ineptitude here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I will say this: for the first time in 5 years, you know, I've stopped watching a lot of the mainstream, especially left-leaning news stations, but I couldn't help but notice they're actually going after him. And for 5 years, it's the first time that you've seen anything even remotely close to this. And when I saw Wolf Blitzer, you know, they showed it on Fox News last night. Wolf Blitzer said, and I give the guy credit, he said, can you only imagine what would be going on with the Democrats if this was happening under a Trump administration? Can you only imagine what they would have been doing?
Yeah.
And I find it's very odd the way that they're in a coordinated fashion all going after him. My daughters get up to go to school at 6 something in the morning, and the other day I got up and came out into the living room and they had the Today Show on, and I don't remember the gal's name because I don't watch it very often, Savannah or something, and she's going really hard against like the national security advisor or someone that she was interviewing. I caught the tail end of it, lambasting Biden, and it's the first time I've ever seen anything like it in 5 years. Mm-hmm. And so if you told me that there was an order given, I would say something is different, because they're all going after him, and it was almost like the whole Democratic scene was untouchable. And
well, let's put it this way. In the old Alta reports, Cliff High had some predictions out there that at some point the Democratic Party would implode and they would start turning on each other. So we just saw last week Como. Of course, the Democrats were turning on him. So it was like a precursor to all of this. And now what we're seeing potentially is the bigger gun here, Mr. B himself. And when you said you don't watch mainstream news anymore, I just wanted to echo this for the audience again. This came out last week. Like, CNN went an entire week without even reaching 1 million viewers. And, you know, between some of the guests that are on my show, we do better than that collectively. And we're just, you know, guys in their offices, in their home offices. So can you imagine how irrelevant these people are becoming? And when they're saying that, you know, it's mostly peaceful and they're mostly nice people here in Afghanistan, nothing's happening at the airport, people can't take them seriously anymore. It's absolutely a farce. So Cliff was talking about, somebody was bringing that up here. Was it Walt? Walt, yeah. Cliff is seeing something else. So a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, he had predicted this little bump around the 16th. And of course, the Afghanistan event just happened on that date. The next one he's looking at now is somewhere between the 21st and the 24th of August. Not sure what that is, but again, the same type of emotional values are kicking up on his chart. So could it be the 25th Amendment? Could it be something like that? Or another type of engineered event here in the United States to kind of trying to change the channel from all of this stuff, the ineptitude, the audits, the southern border crisis. I mean, you name it. There's so many things they're trying to change the channel on, including the failure of the narrative of the thing we can't really talk about here. So what are your thoughts for this maybe upcoming week or two? What do you see? What's your gut feeling telling you as to what could potentially be hitting us here in these days?
You know something, JC, God only knows. I do know one thing, that I won't ever question Cliff's numbers or calculations ever again. It's almost spooky how accurate he has become. And that's kind of what I was getting at, is that there's so many things that are happening all over the place that something has to break.
Yeah.
I will tell you, though, you are right. I mean, it's really stark, actually. It's impossible to not notice how they've all turned on each other. I don't know what it will be. I mean, you said it. I don't think it'll be something with the southern border. You know, I think it will probably have something more to do on an international scale.
Is it possible that the Taliban decide to retaliate here on our grounds? seeing as you know, they're kind of trolling Biden right now. They're like it's actually laughable. So they think of us as absolutely weak. They didn't dare do anything while Mr. T was in power, but now who knows? That people might have turned.
I wouldn't think it would be the Taliban, but I would say this: that it would be the perfect time for anyone who has who doesn't like the United States to do something. I mean, we're spread so thin as it is.
Yeah.
You know, it just seems, you know, maybe you see these military exercises that are going around Taiwan from China. Maybe they start to encroach a little bit more. Who knows? I just think that the rest of the world is probably emboldened right now and are laughing at, you know, at a country that has retreated the way that they did, leaving so many people behind, not just Americans, Europeans too. There's tons of Europeans and Americans that have all been tangled up in this war that have been left behind. And I just think that it's ripe for some type of event to happen right now, because I don't think there's a lot we could do right now in terms of a response. Anyway.
Yeah, and especially if the order has been given to get to the 25th Amendment here against Biden, again, that's going to leave some type of vacuum of power there during that transition.
Well, you know, you mentioned something. I'll ask you a question. I don't even know how legally, if he steps down, you can sidestep the second in command, which is Kamala. How do they put someone else in? I haven't heard that.
I don't know either. I'm just telling you that a few psychics now were looking forward and they're saying it's not going to be her. So were they implying that perhaps it was Mr. T? As far as the predictions are concerned from the predictive linguistics, that's further out. Could be as far as next year before he returns. A lot of things need to happen before that particular, I guess, move is made. And okay, let me backtrack here. So I don't think it's Mr. T either. If they're replacing Kamala, it could be something to do with her legitimacy also. So there might be some issues there in the background that could.
That's Nancy Pelosi then. That's number 3.
Right. Who knows? But what they were saying also, and let me go back to these dates for Cliff there between August 21st and the 24th. What he's also seeing almost imminently, and we might be past where he thought it was going to come up. So we're in that time window now, is that this self-organizing collective, or what people call the white hats or the good hats or whoever the good guys, this military organization that's been fighting this fight here perhaps for decades from the shadows is going to be coming forward. So that's one of the things that we're waiting to see. And if that does occur between the 21st and the 24th, that wakes up a few million normies as well to the fact that, oh shit, not only is there a war, it's ongoing, there are people fighting this, and now they understand the concept of all of these casualties of war. That changes everything. Yeah. So when people are waking up to silver, so imagine the normies who wake up to that fact, who think, oh my God, maybe my pension fund is in problems. Now suddenly they're going to want to act. So your phone is going to ring. So I don't know. It's all in the air. And of course,
that's why you see a company like Palantir buy $50 million worth of gold. You know, exactly. I mean, look, the type of euphoria surrounding our markets are supposed to be indicative of an economy that justifies it, and a society that justifies it. And it just seems that we are not there right now. Mm-hmm. And so I think anyone who's sitting on all of these profits, it's a time to get on the sidelines for a minute. Now, the only problem with that is you got the bail-ins and the gating and the evisceration of the dollar through printing. And so I try to be objective, but where do you put your money anymore other than gold and silver with safety? Now, some people would say cryptocurrencies and okay, fine, but with history, with safety. And the biggest money in the world, you can see what they're doing. They're doing the same thing. And so I just want people to know that when I come on your show and talk, look, I look at gold and silver not as an investment. I've been buying it every 2 weeks for 31 years, and it's wealth to me. Yeah. And that's the proper way to look at it, as wealth. And you can see the biggest money in the world, whether it be Palantir or the big banks on COMEX, or the sovereign wealth funds, or the central banks. They're all doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So Yeah, absolutely. But on that point about who would replace Mr. B here if they do enact the 25th Amendment, and Aspiring Alchemist is saying, yeah, I heard that K is not a U.S. citizen. So I don't know. I've heard that too. It didn't seem to stop Obama, but we are not in the same days where they have all the control and maybe the cohesiveness as a party to hold that line. So if they are infighting now and there are some of these skeletons in their closets, who knows what's going to come up. So anyways, Michelle Lourdes had a comment a few minutes ago on the screen. She was saying, hey, Canadian deliveries. Let's get into that here, Andy. So for this week, we do have a promotional discount here on the beyondmystic.net/silver contact form here for the Beyond Mystic audience. We have the silver maples here. So let's talk about maybe an update to what you talked about last week, your partnership here in Canada to be able to accelerate and make it even easier to make Canadian denominated payments and delivery processing here for our Canadian audience. Let's give an update there, and then let's talk about some of these amazing products and discounts we have here across the board for also our
Sure.
American.
So we've been delivering to Canada for a long time. We have storage facilities in Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver. We have no problem buying from Canada, shipping within Canada. The problem up until now has been that Canadians have to wire the funds to us in US dollars, and it's the conversion fee that first and foremost is probably, and the wire fee and the conversion fee that makes it less economical. So what we have done recently is strike a partnership with a very large Royal Canadian Mint distributor who will be our partner up across the border so that we can start accepting funds in Canadian dollars. Now we are, I'm hoping not too far, maybe a couple weeks away, 2 weeks, hopefully not much more, 3. I have to get up to Canada and sign paperwork at the bank. And I just, now that the border's just open, I'm not even exactly sure what that entails, but
right.
That is something.
Just to be clear here, Andy, though, those are for the Canadians who want to pay in Canadian dollars, but for those of them who are making a bigger order where the wire fee and the conversion is not a problem, they can still order through this form here with you and get it delivered in Canada. Okay.
Yep, that, I mean, shipping it there is no problem at all. And we're actually going to build a website that's under production right now. It'll be Miles Franklin Canada. And I don't know if it's milesfranklincanada.ca or milesfranklincanada.com. Those types of details I am not privy to yet, but I will tell you we're very close to it. The agreement has already been made, and so that we can make it much easier for your Canadian listeners. As it is right now, we have no problem shipping there. But in terms of receiving payment, we'll make it a whole lot easier. I would say no later than I'm hoping by the first or second week in September, we're up and running on that for sure.
Okay. So for all the people who've been filling out forms, I saw quite a bit go through last night. They can still pay as the old way, like before, in American dollars to their wire transfer and have it delivered here to Canada. So that's still in place. There's no disruption there.
Right. I mean, it's important to note that the price is the same, whether it be in dollars or Canadian dollars, based upon the conversion rate to dollars. In other words, if you look at what the price of gold is in US dollars versus the price in Canadian dollars, obviously there's a difference when you apply. Anyways, so it's a situation.
Andy, you seem to be freezing up here. Folks, I think I might have lost Andy.
So anyways.
Okay, Andy, you're back. Hold on.
For a minute.
Hold on. Yeah, we lost you for a minute there, Andy. Maybe just recap that last phrase or two.
Yeah, so I mean, look, gold and silver are valued in dollars. And so the price is the same once you apply the conversion rate. And it's the charge at the bank to convert to dollars. If your bank didn't charge you a conversion fee, then it would be apples to apples. It's the conversion fee that gets most people, and they don't want to make that conversion and then purchase. So that's why we're addressing it the way that we are, and getting the Canadian relationship so that your and all of our Canadian clients will have the ability to make this much easier, more seamless, if you will, without having to first convert into to Canadian dollars or to US dollars and pay that conversion charge.
Right. And in the interim also, you talked about maybe first or second week of September to be ready, you having signed the Canadian banking documents and all that. Is there perhaps another partnership or another way for Canadians here in the next couple of weeks? I thought maybe you were.
I'm gonna call our partner, as I mentioned to you before offline, and later on today, and I'm going to tell them, you know, is there some way that we can jumpstart this even before work out a deal? You know, that's what business is really, is finding a way to get from point A to point B without you know, without disruption. And sometimes you have to you know, sidestep and what have you. I understand that.
Right.
Try to sidestep right here and see if by the time we talk next week that I found a solution to get people to pay in Canadian. I can't promise it, but I will try my best.
Okay, very good. And somebody's saying here, Kathy, money metals exchange premium is at $9.85 over spot. I'm not sure if that's right, but if it is
over American Eagles, it has to be. Would be my guess.
Yeah.
Look,
so at 475 over a spot for Maples here, that's a hell of a deal, guys. Wow.
Well, I think 475 will be as good of a price as you'll find. Out of 100 companies, I will always be in the top 98. There might be one or two, but you know, I just want to remind people that this is a federally non-regulated industry, and there have been a lot of companies that have stolen money and are in prison. Their owners. Tolving Bullion Direct, Northwest Territorial Mint, their owners just were sentenced a couple days ago for running a 7-year Ponzi scheme. Well,
let's talk about that. These people who are front running their inventory, who are basically taking your money, then trying to go into the market to find the silver and then deliver to you. You don't do that. You sell only what you have in inventory. So explain that to the audience.
If I don't have it in stock, it's already been ordered. Right. That's the only caveat. And I'll tell people that. I'll say, look, you know, this particular item is 7 to 10 days away. It's been paid for, been ordered. Do you want it? Now, how can that be detrimental? It can. In 2020, it was. In January, February, I placed an order for $1 million worth of silver maple leaves. And when the Canadian Mint shut down, they were on the floor ready to be put on a Brinks truck and shipped out. And the same thing happened at the United States Mint, where I had $2 million tied up. The U.S. Mint got them out quicker than the Canadian Mint did, but in the Canadian Mint, it amounted to 6 weeks, basically, where people paid. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. This is, you know, normally when we place an order prior to 2020, I'd place an order for $1 million and I'd have it in my warehouse in 36 hours or less. And now it's not that way anymore with the global demand where it is and the supply chain constraints, the social distancing, all of the things that have disrupted normal business and supply chains, especially those that are just in time. That's not the case anymore. I mean, we're buying 6, 8, 12 weeks in advance, paying up front, fully hedging it, doing everything. And we have to hope that the Mint is able to get it to us as they promise, and that there isn't a disruption on a bigger scale. Like, sorry, the borders are closed. So luckily, through all of this, the borders have stayed open to Brinks and to UPS. So we've been able to get product flowing back and forth. But moral of the story is I will only sell what's in stock. If not, I will have already purchased it, and that admission will be made to the client up front. Hey, we've already paid for it. It's due in 4 days. Are you okay with that?
Right.
Great. Otherwise, it's in my warehouse.
Well, that's fair. And that's, again, that transparency is absolutely required these days. I mean, there's so many people out there to get you all the way from your government down to your local counselor. It's a hell of a ride out here.
I couldn't agree more. And that's kind of the bummer of it all, is that, you know, it's, I think that type of feeling like you have to constantly be on guard and be a cynic and never trust. And I do things opposite of that, and I try not to get burned. I believe in goodness and honesty and word. My word is always my bond. I've made plenty of mistakes along the way, but I always make good on my word, even if it costs me a whole bunch of money and I have to eat crow. I will, because integrity and honesty is everything, and especially in a business like this, I'm so out there that if I were not that way, I think I would have been outed a long time ago. It's my strong point. It's Miles Franklin's strong point. We're family. We make mistakes, we make it right, we stand behind everything we say, and we will always treat your listeners, I promise you, JC, with the utmost of respect and class.
Absolutely. And my clients agree. So my viewers agree. We run these surveys once in a while to ask people how they're doing with our affiliate programs, and nothing but stellar news from Miles Franklin. So
awesome.
Thank you, everyone. All right, guys, that's it for today. Man, what an episode. We could do this maybe twice a week with everything that's happening now, but join us next week for sure, Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. This was the weekly Precious Metals Review with Andy.
Jason, let me
and I just realized I have a typo in your name. Somebody said that. I'm like, how did I sneak in there? Right?
That first E shouldn't be there. Let me just put an exclamation point one last time for all the listeners. Remember, they smashed the crap out of the price and then covered 35,643 100-ounce gold contracts, $3.56 million. They covered 12,321 silver contracts, 61.5 million ounces of silver. They are covering. They are scared. They are trapped. Don't be thrown off this bull. Hang on for dear life. And whether you add more or not, this is not the time to be selling. And hopefully people listen to what I say. This is the time to pare down some profit and put it into gold and silver because of that. Because the others then bought 26,540 contracts. That's 2.6 million in gold. Big money is shifting. They're de-dollarizing. They're using the drawdown in the smashing in prices to accumulate. Don't be freaked out by it. Look at it as a sale and a subsidy. So sorry to drag that on, but I think it's really important, JC, people understand that price is the greatest tool of misdirection out there. And this is what they're trying to do, misdirect us all. Don't fall for it.
Beautiful advice. Thank you so much, Andy, for putting the exclamation point on that. Absolutely worth it for the audience. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here today. Please remember to check out beyondmystic.net/silver for your weekly special. And check us out again next Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern for the follow-up show. Thank you so much, everyone. This was the weekly Precious Metals Review with Andy SCHECTMAN. And we'll see you soon, everyone. Au revoir.